are listening to a Freedom Student Ministry podcast.
Talking about this week and next week is identity through faith. So that means you can't get your identity until you have faith in Jesus Christ. So you kind of see faith a lot of places. It's kind of thrown around in our culture. I feel like everyone's like, oh my gosh, I have faith. Yeah, let's put it on a bunch of stuff. So in your small groups, can you guys kind of talk about where do you guys see the word faith plastered on stuff? Go. Sorry.
So you where do you see faith? Walking down the side. See a general sports, maybe. You're at faith in I know,
where you see it.
Alright, where you see it.
You know where you go to college? I see stuff like that all over.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so can I have, I'm going to go through the groups and have you guys shout out a couple things that you came up with. Group one.
T-shirts.
I just said that.
Tattoos.
Media.
I just said that.
Okay, everybody go. Huh? Yeah.
Tattoos.
Yeah.
Books.
Yeah.
Billboards.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
People's
Commercials.
names.
Necklaces.
She already said that.
Oh,
All right.
First shirts.
So that word is it's just kind of everywhere, but I feel like a lot of people don't really know what it means or how to live by faith or why we even would like to live by faith, but we just throw it around everywhere. So like a lot of questions that about anything in our cultures, people ask, what is it? What's the point of it? How do I live it out? And then why am I going to bother with it? What's it going to do for me? So I'm going to start with the what. And that's faith. And faith is having complete trust or confidence is something without proof of it. So I feel like in our generation, we rely on stuff like our senses. We have to see something to know it's real. We have to hear it to know it's real. We have to touch it. What else? Smell and taste. And we can't see, a lot of the times we can't see God. We see things that he's manifested in. We see the beautiful sunrise every morning. We see when people get healed, but we can't physically see God. So a lot of people have issues believing in God because there's nothing that we can see of him. And like we have to hear things to think that something's real, but God doesn't necessarily always work in that way. I was going through some examples, kind of figuring out what kind of Bible characters had a lot of faith, and I did not know that. But before God flooded the earth in Noah's day, you guys know the story of the rainbow. I didn't know that it hadn't rained before it flooded. I was like, that's crazy. So Noah built an ark for a flood that never, there's no rain to even have a flood before this massive flood even flooded the earth. So I was like, that would be crazy. If God told me to go build a boat to survive like a lava flood, I've never seen a lava flood, so I wouldn't build a boat. And Noah had never seen a flood before, but he still trusted in God. He went and built a giant ark to go live in for 40 days. And then also, have you guys heard of the story of Jericho? When Joshua, he walked around the walls 7 times. God told him, he said, go march around the walls of Jericho 7 times and the whole city will fall. And I was like, if someone told me to go march around the walls of a building 7 times and expect it to fall, I don't know if I would do that. That's kind of crazy. And so I was like, and if you guys are at the staycation, we wrote letters to ourselves, and I got mine back like 2 days ago. And one thing that I had said in it that I was asking God to show me in the next year was I want to see and taste and smell and touch and taste and hear like God. And I was like, this is the right word for y'all today. Because I didn't know. I was like, yeah, this is what they need to hear. But that was a way that God was manifesting himself. It was proof that he was real. And so that was really cool. I was like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So like I was saying, if you put yourself inside of those Bible stories, would you be able to have faith like Noah or have faith like Joshua to go build an ark or to march around a wall and expect it to fall? I pray that I'll have faith like that. Mine's faith is still growing, as of everybody's is. But like faith, like I said, it's having trust in something, complete confidence. Erica talked about that a lot last week. Confidence without proof that it is really there. And it's not necessarily something that we always experience with our senses. But that being said, like God shows us, he gives us signs to show us how much he loves us. Or when our faith is going down, he says, here, I'm going to give you a sign to show you. So does any of you guys have any examples of signs that you've seen that you know that God is real, like healings or anything like that you want to share? Just go. Shout it out.
Isaac's not here, but we went on a treasure hunt like last Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he prayed for a guy. This is the first time he's ever prayed for someone. He went up to a guy, and he had a problem with his shoulder. And Isaac prayed for him. Nothing happened with him. The second time he prayed for him, he started to feel this tingling sensation in his shoulder, and he was in the process of getting healed. I don't know if it's not completely, but he was being healed, and that was the first time Isaac had ever prayed for him. He didn't really want to do it, but he did it, and he had faith that God was going to do it, and God healed him. So that was an amazing testimony of faith.
Yeah. Anybody else have any examples? Anything that you have faith in that, like I was saying, how the sun rises every morning, anything like that? Come on, y'all.
Yeah, I guess I got something small. Well, it's big actually, but I had unexpected money coming in the mail via check, and actually it's going to help out a lot with doing some repairs on my car. So that's something unexpected that I wasn't expecting to receive. So that's huge.
Yeah. So like I said, you know, we don't have to have proof. Trusting in God is going in it without proof, but sometimes he does give us things to prove that he's real to us. Because as humans, he understands he came down to earth in the form of Jesus as a man to experience senses, and he understands that we're emotional people. You know, we have to feel and receive sometimes to understand something. But what faith truly is going into it without any proof of anything. And then the how is relationship with Christ. We can't go into it and get our faith and get our identity unless we are in that covenant relationship with Jesus, where we say, Jesus, I'm surrendering my life to you, and I want you to come into my heart and just completely change me. You know, we become a new creation. That's what the Bible says when Jesus comes into our hearts. We call it being born again, because everything in our past is gone. We become new people. We step into a new people, new faith with Jesus. We get a new, you know, it's like we're getting a whole new body. We get a whole new heart placed inside of us because it's wiped clean of everything that ever happened in our past, everything we said, anything that's been done to us. He just takes it all away. And when we're taking that step, he says, hey, I now have a place for you in heaven. There's a mansion in heaven and a door where your name is on it. And he says it's waiting for you. It's just waiting for you. So when we surrender our life to Jesus, we get faith. That's how we get our faith and our identity. He shows us who we are. Like I was saying, you know, God came down and manifested himself in Jesus, and he walked the earth. And he sent his spirit down to be inside of each of us. So, you know, we can't see God, but his spirit's still living inside of us. He can make us feel those tingly feelings, you know. When people say, you know, let the spirit come into the room, you get that warm, tingly sensation. That's Jesus. That's the Spirit of God coming into the room, coming into your situation. But it's just to say, you know, we're here on earth and God is in heaven. He's not physically here with us, but his spirit came down to be with us. You know, we can't see him in the flesh, so we can't experience him with our senses per se. And then one of the Bible verses that I feel like is kind of thrown about is we live by faith, not by sight. That's in 2 Corinthians. And Austin was saying, you know, if we live by the flesh, if we're living by sight, you know, seeing things through the world, seeing everybody else, we're living by sight instead of by faith. We're going after things we can only see. We're not putting our trust in Jesus. I was like, that's kind of crazy. You know, we're living by the flesh, we're living by the world, but that's not what we're called to do. We're called to live for heaven, live for Jesus, not anything of the world. And so I was wondering, let's see, just kidding. So then, you know, that's kind of how we get our faith. We put our faith in Jesus. We have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and he gives us faith and identity. And then, you know, you kind of think about that. You're like, why would I lay down my life? Why? What's the point? You know, what am I going to get from that? It sounds like a lot of work, really, being in relationship with Jesus. But when we have faith in him, he's going to reveal who we really are. I know for me personally, I was like a super perfectionist person, that kid that did everything right. But over like the past couple years and couple months especially, I discovered that that's not who I was created to be. I'm not perfect, which is really cool to say, and accept the fact that I'm not perfect, because when I mess up, that's okay. I can ask for forgiveness, and my slate will be wiped clean. The only one that's perfect is Jesus. We can try to strive so hard after that, but I'm just not going to do everything perfect all the time, and that's okay. And when I have faith in Jesus, and so he showed that to me. He was like, Rachel, that's not who you are. And he showed me that I am loved and that I can be forgiven, and that I'm a cherished daughter of the King. And like the fingerprint thing, you guys can't really see it right now. But that was really, I just kind of came up with that all of a sudden. But I was like, our identity, each of us, we all have a fingerprint, an individual, unique fingerprint. And when we accept Jesus into our hearts, he puts his fingerprint, he puts it on our hearts. And that was like massive for me. I was like, yeah, you see that fingerprint right there? I made it into a heart. Felt pretty good about it. Not gonna lie. But like Jesus, he puts his fingerprint, he takes his finger and says, you're mine. And he puts his identity on your life when we accept him into our hearts. And I just think that's super crazy. Turn back on the lights. Thanks. And so, yeah, that's kind of like, I'm just kind of giving you guys an overview of like what faith is and what it means to live by faith, how to live by faith, and what's the point of living by faith is to reveal our identity. And then we can take that identity and say, hey, look, this is what I've been created for, and we can go out into the world and show Jesus in our unique ways. Some people are created to speak, some people are created to serve. And you can go out after you receive that identity from Christ and say, hey, this is what I was created for, now I want to do the work of Jesus. I want to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. So yeah, it's just kind of like an overview. And then Austin's going to come in next week and tell us, what it means to have identity in Jesus. What does identity look like? And then how that works with relationship as well. So I have some small group questions for you guys to answer a little bit. And if you have any more questions, to ask your leaders or to ask me, but I'll put those up and then you guys can go through it.
Awesome.
Do you believe you have faith right now?
Let's go backwards. I'm going to ask you the last question. We'll just go straight into the deep part, because I feel like it's a pretty deep question. So it says, is there anywhere in your life that you are walking by sight and say, okay, is there any area of your life? Yeah.
Yes.
Any place where was saying not by faith?
Yeah, so pretty much in simple terms, is there anything that you are doing right now without Jesus figuring it out on your own strength? You want to see something happen or want to accomplish something, but without Jesus, but you're like, what is something you're doing without God? Stop that.
I feel like I'm not like that, but like I kind of just do Dawson
Yeah.
like I don't always put on his plans.
And what's that look like? Just you not really.
I mean that's maybe me. I got some nice stuff, but like I never intentionally told it's possible.
Yeah.
My friends know I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Most people know I'm a Christian.
Throughout the day, that's
I don't think any of them know that.
I think
I show it by like people probably know I act different stuff, but yeah, I don't like shouting. I don't
prophets tried to cast us.
bring it up in this like scenario.
They couldn't. They said why? He said,
Obviously,
"Lack
I
of
don't
faith."
really.
He said,
I don't know. It's kind of fair.
There's things to do.
It's a very special.
Jesus
These
is
are beautiful space, but I feel like this is
Me, sure.
we see it like it's just saying like
So he's
parents were like
fast.
see God like there's ways to see God and like as you see God
Yeah.
it's just trust God.
Category.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you know that has a lot?
There's no title to it. You just do it. Like, your heart is compelled to serve. You do it like some people
Whatever.
definitely do it everywhere they go. Like for instance, David likes doing it everywhere he goes. You just do it like me, where I'm just on my day-to-day life, doing life, doing it well with God, and then all of a sudden God just puts something in my heart. And man, I can't go away. Like God put this person in my heart, and I'm just I like personally think Austin's really cool because they needed to hear that. And so it's just about finding how you and how your relationship with God affects other people. Really? It can affect other people. Again, when I first got saved, a lot of people would come up to me and ask questions about it. They saw how like, how does it feel? Okay, so they start asking me questions. I've been saying that you know that a lot of things.
Uncomfortable situations. I mean, like I said, sometimes it's well, I mean, like, I don't even doubt, like, if God were to do something, like, I definitely do it, but it's not just like I'm a little skeptical if it's actually God, but it's just like me telling myself, I want this to happen. Like, for example, like, it's just automatically just like myself.
Say it one more time.
It's like, you know, like, friends do a lot of stuff. I mean, they can do a lot of things.
You want to buy a book?
I feel like sometimes just to, like,
You want to buy a book?
didn't actually like that person.
What book is it?
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So, for
the
example,
idea
what
of
if
like, that's what
just
your person is.
so
Yeah,
hard to
just like, you thinking you want
But what if I
to,
can't
that's so expensive.
journey?
But I just need to keep my own.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
I don't know.
Legitimately, it's true.
That's awesome.
Would you
So
say
you know,
that
it's
you
walking
have
outside,
same right
walking
now?
out, trying to feel and touch and see something.
Pretty more.
What did
Yeah, I guess it's just good.
So you guys
Oh, really?
one that was
Yeah.
This is something that you guys are
Telling you the
change
country.
Just changing people. I just want to change
One second. Check this out.
Don't make this much.
But there are times
But check this out.
how I do things and.
Even like, I'm really praying for you.
Elementary teachers, like,
Mitchell.
I pray.
What are some things you can do to grow your faith?
Because I
can't go back.
have a desire.
No.
Oh, that's ever since like 2 years, 3 years ago.
He's answered that as I prayed
I
for
would
him
not
that for a while. And then we started.
Every time I do
So,
something,
here it is.
I will go to the
Very
church.
Mitchell says never say possibly and do
Email,
nothing.
Mitchell
says
never say.
I got the Bible on my phone, so just have to like open. I opened
Do
it.
not.
Okay. I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah. Mitchell, he says never say God, always say God, what you say, you say,
Oh, I know.
stop.
Teachers,
And I-
It's like he's always the number
in some ways, yes, but like at the same time,
Al's the number, the guy
Great
who's
to
saying,
they gotta be
and they're all good thoughts. So he's looking down at you right now, Max, and he's speaking words of help.
That's why
Once you start to say, you'll start to hear the words that you're saying. Yeah, and you just you grow that, you know, you grow that relationship, and he starts trusting you.
Okay. I think you're outside of.
The teacher didn't understand that very much. She apologized
So
to me,
yeah, it's just
called me out.
he's pouring himself in.
At the same time, I remember.
What was the question?
It was very much. I think outside of.
It's those kind of like relationships.
But it's always there. When you're laughing, when I'm actually like trying to, and then you're not like, you're not so I get every emotion that's like, I don't know what they like.
You just might have to research.
So I started where
Now I
I
can
was
just get you to
like,
send
on
that
the
again.
I'm never sure exactly.
and then I like, something.
Yeah. Ask me to come back.
Ask me what she's covering.
You know, it's hard to get to play it for 5 minutes. And you're having like that.
I gotta show
So, talking about Jeremy Riddle is a beautiful man.
Wow.
Thank you. See?
I used to
Wow.
know.
It's a beautiful.
Are you guys done with your questions?
No.
Okay.
Just so long.
You're distracted. But like American, like
You were
okay,
you guys have answered this question, so everyone was like,
walking home, listening to music, and my phone was
Oh, that one.
and I turned it off from like one period on it to day.
Well, yeah, same. Wow.
Did I like walk home on my school?
Good job.
Like I get a good hour and a half to do that by myself, just get up on the charger or something, do my homework, do what I gotta do first, and then I guys have all free time.
That's a big thing.
In other words, why does it makes it easier? Why don't you just spend one connection at a time?
So you're gonna try to, they're paying you, batteries more, obviously, yeah.
So you can use that time, so after like 10 minutes, you can like just, I'm gonna say, 10 minutes, just, you can just put a timer on. Just have like one walk timer. They answer the how. You get an optional, you get a person where you're talks to you. I think you're in like a swap with music, so. Just take 10 minutes out of the day, so Jesus sharing out. And sometimes I don't know. Show your
I couldn't get out the house, so I was at midnight.
Answer your question.
Just like lights itself.
Don't, Ted. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, but this
Definitely tempted.
Yes. So I know and so pretty much everything from like 2 to 4
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I started doing just spend that time with Jesus, try to worship Jesus. That's what I know. I have to do that. Or else like, my phone's out. It's visible. See, I don't live in a I can easily just go in there and start I can start playing stuff out.
There's this one person I talk to every day and night, but we never talk about it. That's like, I just think back to like, I can tell who a person is,
Yeah.
I can't talk to them. Face to face, vibe.
Yeah. What do you feel like? You feel like that's
We're done.
You can
Okay.
roll up like face to face.
What's never like really talking about is if I'm
Sometimes we're going to get Jeremy Wilson.
But like the face to face,
We just hang out.
I don't think
It's a fun thing to do.
to be honest.
When do you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah. But eventually, it's pretty much just starts to build solid relationships. Like the older you get, the more you're I just because there's only as far as you can really tell social media, if that makes sense. Like there's an extent to like how you communicate with people. So like yeah, that's what like the deep conversations like just more live, meaningful, purposeful, relationships and build is when you're like
really, like completely
yeah. Actually, yeah.
but you're gonna
Yeah. So it's one thing. Sure. So people just figure out We skip too, but so it's kind of like it's a whole different time. Making a relationship with them, she doesn't see her. That's faith. You see each other like when we talk about this, fine, you guys say us, but like with faith with God, it's like anything is possible. And then I see that. Is there anyone who you know that has a lot of faith? Like, wow. Come on. Even stronger faith like oh yeah, when you like what years
You make me happy every time you hear your relationship. That's what I say to kids.
It's like exactly.
It's almost slow motion.
You laugh like
It's almost like it's not from you, I'm just laughing. It's better. Like it's better. But yeah, it's still
There's something really pretty like it's like when you're
I
dying,
no, I think so. Like that. I think it's well right there.
always working.
That's so cool.
On.
Come on. Fire. Fire and all like
Did she say
I'll share it. Just from what I know.
Alright, you guys. I'm going to. Yes. 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 Okay, so before we go into worship, Beck and Austin are going to tell you all what just happened.
Did you want to share this first?
Yes. Okay, so I was like, oh, I did something wrong. I did something.
Oh boy.
Never mind, I'll just make it up.
Make it up. Hold on.
Okay, so I was talking with them in their small group, and we were talking about how, like when we're in our quiet time, we expect something from it, and sometimes our ears aren't open, and like we're not having, like we how God's talking to us all the time. So when we were in Bethel, Austin was taking notes on what Mitchell was saying, and he said, "Never say God speak to me. Always say, God, what are you saying to me? Because God is always speaking." And that and that's just crazy because it's like, do we have the faith to believe that He's talking to us all the time? Like right now, He has words for you, but are your ears open? Do you have the faith that He does have words for you? And we're talking about how, He loves us so much. He thinks about us so much more than the grains of sand that cover the whole earth. He thinks about us that often, and He's talking to us that often. So that was just crazy. And then also, Becca's ear was hurting from something down in dodgeball, and so we prayed for it 3 times. She was like, "Yeah, it feels better, it's good." And so I'm like, "All right, we're going one more time." And I didn't even finish praying. She goes, "It's gone." And so that was really awesome. I was like, it's for real. Like, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? I wasn't even done praying. And she goes, "The feeling's just gone." She does. She just went, "It's gone." I was like, that's really cool. You have just been listening to a Freedom Student Ministry podcast.